And boom, we are live. Hello and welcome everybody to the Wide World of Warhammer. With me today is a beautiful gentleman living in the Great White North of Canada land. Rickard, how you doing, buddy?
Not doing too bad, not doing too bad. How are you doing?
That's better now you're here, man. Better now you're here. I'm definitely slowly waking up. It's a little early for me traditionally, but look, I'll make any time in the world to talk to you, buddy. So I'm definitely getting more and more caffeinated, and I'm excited to have a chat with you today. So I guess Rickard, for people who are like, who the hell is this Rickard fella? Would you care to introduce to the I guess South Pacific audience or people who haven't had the chance to meet you or talk to you?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for this opportunity to conquer time travel because for me, it is Sunday afternoon. So, to those of you in
Yeah.
the future, I salute you. I am Rickard. I am 43 years old. I am Canadian, as mentioned, living in Canada. Work in IT. Got a very patient wife. I have a son who is destroying fools in Shul, uh, which I am incredibly proud of. He's better than me already in pretty much everything. And yeah, I play Warhammer. I'm autistic. I'm dyslexic, and there's a few other things which I'm sure we'll talk about. And that's what I work in IT. The
Yeah.
glasses might fool people otherwise, but I am in fact a colossal nerd.
No, no, what you play Warhammer and aren't a nerd? You are a nerd.
I know, right?
Shocked. I'm shocked. I'm
No,
shocked.
there's
I don't
some
think.
actual cool people who do cool things. Like I'm not like frat guys, frat boys who are playing Warhams. I'm like, oh wow, this
You
really is a
missed.
hobby for everyone.
You missed out, Rickard. You missed out on the ideal timing. So that's all right. Well, next time it never works out to be in the cool group and be able to play Warhammer and all your words nerdy things. But and look, being in IT, look, that's like one of the 5 approved professions in Warhammer. I think like I'm starting to get a vibe. I don't know if you heard the story, Rickard, of like the traditional story getting to Warhammer is pretty typical. Like you start as a kid, then you have a break for end of high school, university, then you get back into it. I think there's like also now there's like 5 or 6 approved professions for you to be a comp 40k player. I've got like software engineer, teacher, like accounting and
Engineering,
finance,
period. Just engineering, period.
engineer.
Period.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's
IT.
yeah, to fit in the mold. Yeah, it's like like one of 5 or 6 approved professions to be a comp 40k player. But uh, anyways, yes. So but to digress, that's not what we're here to talk about. Is approved 40k professions. But so I guess Rickard, I'm here to talk to you. So I understand you have a podcast called Stunt Accessibility Required. Do you mind
Yeah.
talking to us what the hell that is all about?
Yeah, so it's a once a month pod. Oh, I should have brought up the tagline. No, it's a once a month podcast that I have somebody come on and we discuss neurodivergence and tabletop gaming. So not necessarily Warhammer. My next guest is a good friend of mine who does plays Flames of War, their old world, and we've been doing tabletop role playing games together. Our group has been meeting for like 8 years or something like that now every week. But I just I just really like just conversations I've had with people offline, then conversations online on Discord and stuff like that. I just really felt like like a lot of misunderstandings, and there's a lot of like things would be better if we openly talked about mental health and neurodivergence, like depression, autism, dyslexia, like you name it, right? Because like it impacts how, and like we'll get into this more, but like it really impacts how people play the game and how they socialize and everything else like that. And just yeah, I just felt like it was really really important, and so I just decided to let's do the Thanos thing. Fine, I'll do it myself. It's
Well, more than fair, more than fair. So I guess, and like, so I guess this is what the topic today is going to be about. So making things more accessible in Warhammer, obviously with a big line, but from a neurodivergence perspective, because obviously people come from all different walks of life and have different people on the spectrum, so on various angles, or have various things going on in life that makes things hard to access the hobby or do various things. So I think podcast is like it's relatively new in the sense of like less than half a dozen episodes or a dozen or
yeah,
so episodes, and it's a really good. I find it very fascinating. I'd love to talk to you, obviously, hear more today about it. So I guess for yourself, Rickard, like what the hell does neurodivergence mean? Like for someone who's heard the term but has no idea what the clinical Oxford Dictionary definition is, like, but what does it mean for you?
So, like, I think the word says a lot. Where like neuro means the brain, right? And then like the word divergent means like it's a bit off course. Yeah.
Sure.
So it's and like my go-to for this because it's something that's like super tangible is dyslexia,
Yep.
or like learning disabilities that surround that sphere. Like it used to be dysgraphia, which is writing, and dyscalculia, which is math. Now modern science, modern medicine, they like bundled it all together to just be like, okay, so like it's a learning disability. But like dyslexia is literally like the letters on the screen or on the page, they start either they look weird right away or they start looking weird after a little bit. And like the brain, like it's that's not going on a straight path.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So yeah, so that's how I usually treat it. Some of it also has to do with like the preconceived notions of what is normal, and then anybody who doesn't fit within that box, then again, it's just like
Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Trying to fit a square peg in a round hole doesn't work
yeah,
all the time.
exactly, yeah.
No, fair enough. Just to extrapolate more on that, Rickard. So obviously, I've heard of the term dyslexia and the sense of is it just like the words on the page, like sometimes letters are switched around and you can't read it, or what does it? How does it affect yourself and
So
maybe others?
great question. So I noticed I was taking a course, a project management course for a job that I had, and I was having a really difficult time. And the instructor saw me up at the whiteboard, like pointing at it, drawing little lines, like with my hand, like going, like like and like I'm talking out loud to myself, and she's like,
Yep.
like, are you doing okay? I'm like, no, like I'm having trouble processing this, like, and like sometimes like it doesn't happen right away, but after a bit, like things start like everything starts moving, and like like it's not like words like letters are backwards or words are backwards or whatever, but like it's like they get jumbled. It's like a
Right. Sure.
word search. It's a word
Sure.
search,
Sure. Sure.
and that's how you get me to have a stroke. Is you actually put an actual word search in front of me. But the and so she's like, "Oh, well, I'm dyslexic, and it sounds a little bit like that." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, I should look into this." And then I lost that job, and I'm like, "Well, all right, I better like I should probably get this looked at." So I go in for dyslexia testing, and within 5 minutes, she says like, "Hey, listen, like, so have you been tested for autism before? Like done autism testing?" I'm like, what's autism? Like
Oof. That's
I'm
one way to find out.
40, yeah, I know, right? Like 43-year-old white guy from the from small towns, growing up. And so I had like this really superficial view of it, and then so she runs me through all the tests, and yeah, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I bonus, I guess. So like, how 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 it works specifically, like how all these things, because they're like sometimes you get like the combo platter, and
Sure.
it's not just that the words look weird, but I am like after I say this, people like little switch flips, like it's like,
Yep.
oh, that this makes sense. Like I'm not stupid, but I'm slow. Like my processing isn't good, and that impacts the reading further, and it impacts memorizing things a lot.
Yep.
And so, like, I'm gonna forget this conversation when we're done. I
Thank God
already
it's
forget.
recorded.
I already forget the intro that you gave. Like, if you gave your last name, I don't know. So it's yeah. So like just it's a lot. It's a
Sure.
lot. And then autism itself has this like range of stuff that people watch stuff like terrible shows like Big Bang Theory, and they think, oh, that's autism. And no, that's not it. I'm going to punch you if you compare me to that dude on that show, or
Sheldon Cooper. Yep. Fair.
yeah, or certain uh, yeah. I'm no, you know what? I'm going to keep. I was going to say something. I'm going to keep that to myself. Never mind.
Keep it internal, Rickard. Internal, Rickard.
Yeah, no. So that's the thing, right? Is that and like after getting diagnosed and learning more about myself, so it's a learning disability. Autism isn't a learning disability. It's a neurological one. So like it's just how my brain is literally built and how it
Sure.
functions. And then on top of that, there's a learning disability on top of that. So I got this combo platter of three things going on, and they're all like, they
Sure.
fight,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair
fight.
enough. Yeah. Never want to work in never want to work in tandem. They always want to work against each other and never cooperate. But
I mean, sometimes they work in tandem, but
sometimes they work in tandem, but more often than not, unfortunately.
yeah,
So I guess. So how does that affect you? So obviously, like 40k is very rules dense in a number of ways. Obviously, there's bloody big codices to read updates and like that. Obviously, as we're speaking, like it's less than a week since the recent MFM, like balanced data slate. So I guess for yourself, Rickard, do you find it, I guess, pretty hard or challenging to sit down and read like some of these
yes,
balanced data slates? Yeah, yes,
yes.
fundamentally. So I guess how do you try and overcome these? How do you overcome it then? If it's hard to read because obviously said the words get jumbled or it doesn't interpret well. Like how do you overcome this? And what is your approach to dealing with the constant cycle that is the fucking Comp 40k as a whole?
Well, first of all, I would hardly consider myself a top end comp player. I'm not. Decidedly not. I founded a team called the B plus players. That's a little clue as to where things are at there. I take my time,
Sure.
and that's the number one thing with the bullet that I've had to learn a harsh lesson with after getting diagnosed. Seeing the test results, so it's uh 0.1 percentile. So I'm in the bottom 0.1% of processing speed. I am a slow ass guy. Or maybe it's 1%. I can't remember. It's either 1% or 0. Whatever it is. I think it's 1%. I don't know. I should look it up. But it's like it regardless. And like my wife Stephanie, she's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how can you carry a conversation? I'm like, with effort. How
Fair.
how do you
Fair.
learn things? I don't. I
I'm
mean,
sure you
I
do
do. It takes
as
time. So
well.
when the data slate comes out, it takes me longer than other people to pick up to read it. Like other people, like I rely a lot on Cliff Notes, so like Goodhammer articles, stat check videos. What like for a guy that doesn't read good, I do like a good write up. Just like just like, and I think Goodhammer does a fantastic job of that with their like little reviews. I just go to my factions first. Okay, how does this impact me and my stompy robots
Sure.
and Emperor's babysitters and um and then after I process that, I start looking at the other things. The app is incredible. The Games Workshop app is incredible. I look up the rule for benefit of cover minimum 7 times a week because for the life of me, I can never remember. And like I'm teaching new people on Thursdays at our local store, and like 4 times every Thursday, I'm like, I can't explain this right here. Just read this. Well, why can't you read it? I can't. Like I can, but no. It's yeah. So it's just 10th edition has been really good in that respect. And then I also you gotta know your swing. So I play factions that just don't have a lot of models.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and I
Just
say you're a nice enthusiast to say the least. Big fan of the Terran keyword, and I look. It's
yes.
not. Look, it's
I
not.
just
It's not
got
a thing.
I got a Storm Raven specifically because I'm going to start Grey Knights because they made Grey Knights easier to do because I last played them in 8th edition. It was a miserable experience. I almost quit the game because they were my first faction and I hated it. And then I switched to Knights. Oh no, this is much better. But I got Storm Raven specifically so I could have true line of sight at all times. Still.
Certainly, you will most certainly have that. Look, I mean, look, why don't you follow your fellow Canadian brethren and someone, well, he's not that close to you, but obviously Mr. Scary, Ridvan, is proposing the Void Revan Bomber, and look, that has true line of sight of all times, but like, avoid the whole other, 1,700 points of the faction, which is finicky, you little bullshit elves, but anyways.
I mean, it's Scary. 1,700 points to Scary is like 3,000 points to everybody else. So,
it's not bad on the old 40k.
I gotta say, like, everybody says that, but having met him in person, having talked with him and interacted with him, there are fewer better ambassadors for this hobby. That man is just a genuine good dude. Capital letters. So if he's listening to this, Riven, good dude. That's you.
The Keanu Reeves of 40k, right? I don't think I've ever heard a negative story about him, so that's a very good tagline for him.
I like that. That's good. That's good. Oh, wow.
There you go. Well, we're better for him. So,
wow.
You're talking a little bit there before, Rickard, about how you're training people on Thursdays. So, is there something? Are they specifically people who maybe have? Are they just general learn to play 40k days, or are they a specific group of personnel or people?
So, my best friend Jeremy Curry in StatCheck, we've known each other for over 20 years, and I consider him, I don't know how he feels, but I consider him, he is my brother, in all respects. So he started doing this learn to play thing where he'd have some demo armies and he would either walk somebody through a game or he would supervise a game and walk people through it and be like, hey, bring any amount of points. You can bring 2 units. That's fine. We'll teach you the basics. And then just grow the community and grow these people from the ground up, and then introduce them to smaller events, and then introduce them to bigger events, and teach them how to build the armies and stuff like that. And I was looking for ways to give back to the community, and I was volunteering at a different place for almost 20 years, and I stopped doing that. So there was this gap where I love building, metaphorical building, building people up and building community and stuff like that. So this really seemed this just seems like I gotta help my brother, I gotta help this community that means a lot to me, I gotta help build up people. Why would I not be involved with this? So I just was like, hey, can I help? Jeremy's like, yes, and then we've been doing it for a few months now, and I would say a couple of them are better than me already, which isn't hard, but
it's equivalent how people can learn. So it sounds like it's just a generic learn to play 40k sort of nights. There's no specific
bring your point, bring what you have, bring your points anywhere from 500 to 2,000, or bring a combat patrol. We won't play combat patrol, but
teach the basics and learn the game. It's fantastic.
Teach them the basics, and then I also try to have conversations surrounded around inclusivity and neurodiversity and just stuff like that, just to let people know this is the atmosphere, this is the community that we're trying to grow and that we're trying to nurture, and just and so far everybody's like, oh, that's really cool, that's great, and oh yeah, no. And,
sorry, Rickard. So what does that mean? So what does it mean to be more inclusive or try and have people from different people on the spectrum? How do you go about making it clear, hey, we're very inclusive and we were accepting of people from these backgrounds?
People can be themselves. Well, actually, these days, I'm trying not to get overly political throughout this conversation, but these days, people have the right to exist. I have the right to exist. Trans people have the right to exist. And I'm not taking that for granted because I can't. And so for me, it's important to be able to have that space where I can be myself. People like me can be themselves. Other marginalized communities, people that belong to those, can be themselves, and just like letting people know, like no, like we're allowed to exist. We have the right. No, not allowed. We have the right to exist. We have the right to be ourselves. And like, just if people don't like that, they, that's,
Bugger off. It's fair, so,
yeah,
yeah,
no, they can
yeah,
kick rocks.
yeah.
I don't need that in my life. I got like,
Yeah. That's more than
like
fair. More than fair. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not like we it hasn't come up, but like we want to act like it's just like it'd be conversations, be like, okay, listen, like this is who I am. Please accept this. This is who this is who like if somebody is acting homophobic or transphobic, be like, listen, like I don't know what your background is. I don't know where you came from. I used to hold those views myself even a few years ago, but like no, that's not cool, and we don't do that here. We have the right to exist, and people have the right to
Yeah, that's yeah,
it's just
it's okay. It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we could go a lot of tangents about it. So, like trying to make it so I understand perfectly clear. So, is there something that you like put like a big rider on? Say, hey, look, this is what we expect of the community. Like when people join, do you say this, this, and this, and this, or is it just pretty common? And like as soon as someone maybe starts to be a bit of a fuckwit, you say, hey, pull them up.
Well,
Hey, come on, man. Or come
no,
on, whoever you are. Apologies.
nobody has been for the most
Sure,
part,
of
which is
course. Yeah, no, most
which
people
is
are pretty good.
great.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's but like the players pack have a diversity and inclusion statement.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice.
our store owner Dan Morris of Red Dragon fame, he has a zero tolerance policy with that stuff too. But like it just so like everybody who's involved in the organizing scene within the Red Dragon space is all like we're all on the same page. We're all thinking the same things. Was really nice is they asked for my opinion
Hmm.
and they value my opinion and like they'll ask like is this accessible because I got physical problems too. So this past weekend I was having a lot of problems physically, and with chronic pain and some other stuff like that. Won't bore you all with details, but like Dan's like, okay, we have a table with chairs. You're at that table the rest of the day. Um, so like we haven't had like I, I don't think we've had like I've only recently got involved on the organization side, but like I'm not aware of any you know problem people within that kind of space. It's like there's been problems, but like unrelated to
Sure.
like no like yeah like
No.
I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's fair, fair enough, fair enough. So I guess for yourself, so you talked about there, obviously making, I guess, the tournament more accessible for yourself. And I know in the past you've spoken about trying to attend events and you yourself prefer and require like different accommodations and stuff like that. Do you mind
Yeah.
talking about some of the accommodations that you've asked in the past, and then what do you set up for yourself when organising events that way people feel included or a bit more comfortable, essentially? Other than the traditional, obviously, like what 40k players want is sort of try and get higher tables, maybe a bit of space between
Yeah.
tables. Obviously, those are nice to have and they're nice premium luxuries. But what are some actual requirements that you try and get yourself?
So it's neat because I recently was the main TO for the first time for an event. So like I have a new appreciation for that side of things.
Yep.
Like I've helped out at a couple, but like this was my first time being like, okay, like this is my event.
Mm-hmm.
And uh so I uh so as an event organizer, what I tried to do was just have open communication. I we made the decision that lunch wouldn't be provided because instead of a bunch of dietary restrictions and everything else like that and trying to trying to accommodate everybody, sometimes the best answer is the libertarian approach of do it yourself.
Yep. Fair enough.
Everybody
Fair
chooses
enough.
for themselves, and if 20 people just happen to want pizza, you 20 can go get pizza. But uh, so things like that. Affordable price points because not everybody has, being disabled is expensive. So
Yep.
if you're going to cut costs in the hobby, then events is naturally one spot where like, oh, I can't justify a $200 event. So because it was an event for students, we made it cheap. Things I look for as a player is uh, space.
Sure.
Space is a big one.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure. I guess without I guess speaking on your behalf, but is it? I know in the past traditionally, my understanding is that you've asked for sometimes. Obviously, I understand people who suffer from or who not suffer from autism, but who have autism, would require like I guess more like I suppose the technical term sensory deprivation rooms. Is that the correct? No, that's not the correct term. What's the?
sensory avoidance. So
There you go. Perfect. Sorry,
it's
apologies.
no, 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 no. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's all right. That's why we're here. The 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 um. So I get around sound by I have earplugs. So
Sure.
earplugs that cut a few decibels off, and then like if need be, like I'll leave the room or something like that. Lights, I'll wear a hat.
Yeah.
Uh, which is uncomfortable. I don't like wearing hats, but if it's between that or light hitting my eyes, then that's another thing. I have. There was one event in particular that I did ask for accommodations for because I like by the end of it, between we were cramped, like there was no space. People like bum touching was like hustling and bustling, and um, that's not my jam
Yeah.
to be that close with people. I've got bubble thing happening, so I don't like handshakes even. So it's a big deal. If I make physical contact with somebody, it's a big deal. If I hug
Sure.
somebody, they are a family member.
Fair enough. Fair
Like
enough.
I think I hugged Jeremy yesterday, Saturday, for probably the first time in like 18 years or something like that. Like it's a big deal. Uh,
Sure.
so I told one of the organizers how I was doing. I'm like I'm dropping. I'm not coming back tomorrow. I can't deal with this. And they're like, oh well,
Yeah.
we can get you a breakout room where you can play. I'm like, well, son of a bitch. What? Like why? Like I could have used this all weekend. Um, and so to their credit, they did that. Um, I it's a bit of a mixed bag, and like I talked about this on my pod that like I don't want to be an ingrate because they did do the accommodations when I asked for them, but if they just took a photo of the event space, I would have sold my ticket.
Sure. Sure.
I because I would not have shown up. Now they've promised that this year's is going to be in a larger space, which means it'll be less quiet. Sorry, more quiet because there's more space. I can go to a little corner when I need to, just decompress.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, and then other times, asking for stuff in advance. So like, can get a copy of the player's pack in advance. Can we get the missions in advance? Can we get like just like and then for teams, my teammates, I asked them like, okay, like if you want me to review things, you need to give me time to review things.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And like, it just gives you the time to prepare and digest and I guess
Well,
absorb the
preparation is good
information. Yeah.
for yeah, like preparation is good for any team, but
Absolutely. Absolutely.
for my team specifically, like because of the processing things, like okay, like we got one guy he's playing custodies, so like I can bat ideas around with him. That's not a
Yeah.
problem. But like uh I don't know anything about Death Guard.
I just walk slow and maybe use some auras,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right. They got Mothman
That's it.
as their Primarch. I don't know what this is.
Sure, sure. So if someone was to
Yeah.
ask for advice, I understand you would have to take your time to understand the
I would have
study
to
that
take my
faction.
like I
Yeah,
need to take my
yeah, of
time to
course.
understand the faction. Like and it's better now since like now that I've
Yeah,
started doing the TO thing and started helping out judging and other stuff like that. Like my understanding of the game has gotten a lot better, but there's still,
Yeah,
like if you're gonna throw a list at me, all right, just let me
yeah. Let me digest and take my time. So I
give me
guess
20 minutes.
yeah, that's fair enough. So I guess for yourself, obviously, when you attend a tournament, most of the time we play maybe one or two people who are brand new to us that we've never played against before. So do you generally like have a pre-game speech or like do you
Always.
start things off? Yeah, okay. So what would be an example of some of the things you talk about with an opponent to get them on the same page and get them to understand what this person is?
Great question. That's a great question.
I try.
Uh, no, that's really good. Last year, going to All Is Dust in Petawawa. I think it was no, it was Sudbury. We were going to an event in Sudbury, which like for us is like that's a commitment. It's far, and I was
Little bumfuck nowhere Canada town for people who are not Canadian.
it's like Northern Ontario, and like we're like by like Quebec,
Sure.
Ottawa. So like it was a jaunt, but we ended up. I was talking to Stephanie, and I was really stressed about it, and she's like, just tell people. You have no problem. You have no problem telling people here in Ottawa. Like, tell people before your games. Tell them. And so I'm like, okay, all right, well, I'll try that. So I'm like, hey, just so you know, I'm autistic and dyslexic. So what that means is my memory is bad. I'm going to be asking a bunch of questions, and it's going to be the same questions. And I'm a little bit slow, a lot bit slow. Um, so you might have to repeat your answers sometimes, And then another big one is uh, my motor control skills and spatial awareness is shit. It is bad. So I tell people that, and I say, listen, for critical measurements, I'm going to ask you to do the measurement for us. And if you see anything off, it's not malicious. Just tell me. We'll fix it.
Yeah,
Like
nice.
it's unless the tape measure is literally like flat on the ground, just just call me out on it if it happens, and like just having that conversation. And then the neat thing is I'm less stressed, and because I'm less stressed after I have that conversation, some of those things happen less.
Yep.
Like I've noticed that like people aren't taught, like they're not putting out measurement mistakes or like or those kind of things because like because I was upfront with them, less stress, less things for me to think about and stuff like that. And so then it's yeah,
Yeah,
and then
it's
then the other thing I also do is I'll sometimes cheat myself out of like 2 or 3 inches because I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I'm not going over, so I'm like, but it's better to
yeah.
play it safe. I don't know. I don't
No,
know what I'm doing.
no, I'm sure. I'm sure you know what you're doing more than you think you do, and like, yeah, I think you're doing fine. So no,
I
that's
sound
that's
like my
great to.
therapist.
Oh, not licensed by any stretch of the imagination. So, I guess so. That's great to have those discussions. Have you? Has there been any? I guess conflicts or people had issues with that at all, or you've most for the 90% of the time it's been pretty good.
Uh, there was a stretch when I would say, um, it was probably the lowest point of my life, which is saying something because several years ago I was homeless, and that was a better space than where I was uh, at the time, like a couple of years ago, and I was a miserable person to play against. Just it was bad, and I got pulled aside, and I got told, um, uh, I was given feedback about what I was doing and other things like that, and uh I took a break. And I took a break, and that was also the kick in the ass I needed to do trivial things like call a crisis hotline, which saved my life. So anytime people listening, if you are in distress. Crisis hotlines are amazing and they're really great. And like we wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't call one. Uh, and just trying to recollaborate myself, and I try to crawl all of the space I was at, and that was a part of the thing about going to Sudbury was that was one of my first big events since trying to basically rebuild myself from the ground up, and I was worried. I was like, can I handle this? Um, and stuff like that. And you know, Jeremy said, "Don't worry about it." Dan said, "Don't worry about it." Very understanding, you know. But like Stephanie is like, "No, like you need to have these conversations with people because like things impact you more than normal. That's the whole
Sure.
neurodivergent thing, right?" And so
Yep.
she's like, "If you're having a bad day, or if you're overstimulated and it's impacting your motor skills." If you're more clumsy than normal, if you're not seeing things normal, if you're not talking normal, if it's not something people are used to, yeah, they're going to naturally like it's not going
Yeah.
to be a pleasant experience for them. But if you talk with them about it first, then
Yeah.
it becomes a conversation of understanding, of openness, collaboration, and things like that. So like it's made a huge difference,
Yeah.
a huge
That,
difference.
that's great. That's what you want, right? Is like having that conversation, and people are like, oh yeah, cool, no worries at all, and then I'll work with you in tandem to have a pleasant experience on the tabletop. So, are there any other general tips or pieces of advice that you would advise people? Like, so if they're in a similar situation, playing against someone who says, "Hey, look, this is what I'm going through, or what I suffer, or what I and I go through. Could you help me out with the X, Y, and Z? What are some general tips and words of advice that you would
Just be
provide?
patient.
Yeah,
Be patient, please. That's the big thing. Be patient and I don't expect people to be understanding, but
yeah,
respect goes a long way, and don't presume. It's a Halen's razor thing. Don't presume malice. Like that's the thing, and that's the biggest thing. And since I started applying that to other people, my quality of life has gone up just because like who knew that people aren't you know the people I play against aren't out to get me.
no,
Like
no, generally not, generally not. Yeah, so that's
so
very very fair. So I guess what are some of the biggest things that you've learned? So obviously during your podcast, you talked to a variety of guests. A lot of them, like say they've been recently diagnosed with ADHD, and various people come from like various different walks of life. What are some of the biggest things that you've learned and could pass on words of wisdom wise to our fellow listeners?
it's never too late to go learn more about yourself. The
Sure.
amount of people who find out later in life it's never too late to go on a journey of self discovery and self improvement and learn more about yourself and the world that you live in. That's a big one. Had a couple of really incredible conversations with uh, a couple of trans people who I absolutely love those conversations because I that's a space that I've never been super familiar with, and I want to learn more, and I want to be a better ally, solidarity, intersection things like that, and so like having those conversations and like helping them promote their ideas of what an inclusive space means for them uh, for the reasons I mentioned before about having the right to exist. So that has been great. But like the number one with the bullets is like it's never too late. It's never
Sure.
too late. If you're like 80 years old and you have the resources to do it, go in and get tested.
Yep. Yeah. It can't. It generally
Can't
cannot hurt, right?
can't
So
hurt. Can't
no.
hurt.
Yeah, but understanding yourself better is probably always a very good thing. So that makes a lot of sense. I guess so. What are some other? Is there any other big misconceptions that you've generally heard or people think, or when they hear like someone's autistic or dyslexic or have neurodivergence of some sort? Is there any other big misconceptions that you've come across that people maybe would appreciate understanding more?
one of my favorite books is by Eric Garcia, and yes, I have read a book, and I read it from front to back. It's the first one that I've read front to back in years, and it was well worth it. And I'm working through it again. It's a tremendous book. It's called "We're Not Broken: Changing the Autism Conversation." Uh, we're not diseased.
Okay.
We don't have a disease. We're built different, and that's why there's a push for identity-based language. I don't have autism because autism is not a disease. My wife has depression. That is true. She has clinical depression. That's fair. I do not have autism. It's not like I take my autism to the restaurant and get the 2-for-1 special, right? Like
Sure.
no, like it's not like it's not a disease. And as hard as people are trying to turn it into that by peddling nonsense, like saying measles outbreaks are better than being like me, which is basically what the whole vaccination thing amounts to. Oh, we can't get our child vaccinated for measles. What if they catch the autisms? Like, all right, first of all, whether or not you vaccinate your child, you're like, they're still going to be obsessed with trains, regardless if you do that. Like, we're born this way. It's just it's a whole thing, and uh, like I, it's hard, dude. It is hard, and people have told me to just turn off the news, just keep your head down, and the only thing I can tell them is I can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do that. There are people that are out there that genuinely want us gone. And that's where the neurodiversity rights movement comes in. I'm 43 years old. If I was born 2 or 3 years earlier, we wouldn't be talking. I would not have graduated high school, and I could have been shipped away someplace.
Sure. Yeah. So,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
it's heavy. There's another book, Neurotribes, that gets into all of this stuff, and it's I had to set it down. Like even I'm like, oh, this is dark, but
Hmm.
like it's like a little window into what my life would have been like in like. So that's a big misconception, a huge misconception, and it's one that I'm constantly trying to promote. Is the idea that we're not broken.
Sure. Yeah, and they're just different, right? And like,
Yeah.
no different for you or I or whatever else. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess, is there any other like resources or I guess uh, pieces of information or advice that you could give to people who are under the effects of or want to learn more about neurodiversity and various other things?
Getting plugged in to different communities is good. Talking with conversations like this are great. Just being able to have conversations like this, uh, and being able to share our experiences, our journey. Again, under like patience, respect, the right to exist. Again,
Sure, sure.
and like it's it sounds like hyperbole. Like and like people listening to this, like it's like potentially it's going to sound like hyperbole when I say the right to exist. But like I need to like and like I don't know if you wanted this to be like a lighthearted conversation. I should have asked
No.
you ahead of time, but like um there is still a place in the U.S. that does shock therapy. The guy that invented applied behavioral analysis, which is the main treatment, air quotes, for autistic kids, because God forbid adults get any help. Like that just doesn't happen. But the main treatment for kids, air quotes, is made by the same guy who invented conversion therapy.
Sure.
So like the current president of a certain country and the guy that he put in charge of health thinks that we are diseased. We like rights are being taken away. The whole DEI thing, I benefit from that because I need that to get jobs because
Sure.
people are going to consider me otherwise. So sorry for controversial takes and everything else like that, and make it things morbidly depressing. But like the biggest like a huge misconception is like we're not broken. That's one, and two, like we have the right to exist, and it's being threatened. So if you encounter somebody who is autistic or a part of another marginalized group and they're acting a bit defensive or they're a bit angry with the world, newsflash, we have a reason for it.
There's no reason why. That's fair enough. So I guess what were those two books that you mentioned before that for people who maybe want to read those or understand more?
Uh, the We're Not Broken,
Yep.
Changing the Autism Conversation by Eric Garcia is fantastic. He goes into a bit of the neurodiversity rights movement, the history of autism. He's autistic himself. He's a
Mm-hmm.
journalist, so he tackles it in a way that a journalist would,
Yep.
uh, with somebody with traditional journalistic principles. So I have a lot of respect for him for doing that, and he does a lot of he goes into a lot of really good things about and then he talks about intersection. He talks about how homelessness impacts uh, autistics, jobs, careers impact autistics, schools, like you name it. Another one is Neurotries by Steve Silverman, and that one
Deep. Heavy book. Heavy book.
it I
Yeah.
the so autism, so there used to be this thing called Asperger's syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and with the in the states with the DSM-5 came out and they folded Asperger's under autism, and because the Venn diagram was, and then we started like a circle, and like we learned more about how it's a spectrum, it's autism spectrum disorder, and uh so not
Yeah.
everybody is like Rain Man or
Sure.
whatever, right? Um, so after that, we started learning more about Asperger himself, and it's not good. It's really not good. Uh, the
Sure.
And yet in this book, he is treated as a sympathetic figure. So that tells you. So when you actually learn about what he did, and this is the guy that's actually treated as a sympathetic figure in this book, that tells you how dark this thing is. But like I had to read it because I'm like, okay, this is where I could have been, and this is where yeah, this is where I could have been, and this is where my people were. And then Garcia's book also gets into this is where we could be. And then
Sure.
another great website is the Autistic Self Advocacy Network, and that's a super important website because, like I said, adults we get nothing, so we have to fight for everything we have.
Yeah, great
Yes.
recommendation. Yeah, so no great recommendations and pieces of information there. So, and I guess is there anyone else maybe in the Warhammer or wargaming community that maybe speaks about this more in depth in general, or has various conversations about like how they deal with neurodiversity? Because obviously, I
Uh,
have one that comes to mind, but I'm curious what if you have any recommendations or people may want to learn more.
well, there's some people in the StatCheck Discord who talk about it often. So like, there's individuals who talk
Mm-hmm.
about it like everyday conversations. I can't think of any off the top of my head that actually produce any content about it, which is one of the reasons why I felt that's a space that needs to be explored.
Sure.
I would love it if there was some, and I would consume their content
Yeah.
regularly. But I'm not aware of any content creators that actively have this as like their thing, which
Sure.
surprises me because there's a very large amount of neurodivergent people who play the
Yeah.
painfully intricate game with collectible models.
Most certainly, most certainly. Yeah, the one that comes to mind, I guess, is there was an interview done with Adam Lane by the Contact Lost lads a little
Yes,
while ago.
yes,
So
that is
yes,
one. Yes, that is one. Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. So,
absolutely.
and I know it's a very insightful conversation that I learned a lot for myself. So Tomek did a chat with Adam Lane. So Adam Lane was part of the WTC UK team for a little while. Like, I'm not sure what he's up to now, but obviously part of Art of War for a little while there. Did a bunch of articles for Goonhammer, and as has autism himself, and he talks openly about how he tries to manage that when attending UKTC events, and then what his experiences have been, and as he talks to various members of the UK government, how to sort of improve various walks of life and stuff like that. And then I know there's another chat with a gentleman. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it, but it was Death Guard player. It was very popular in Ninth Edition, and he has more physical ailments in the sense that he requires hearing aids and is not
Yeah,
very good with hearing, and so he required like
hard of
sensory
hearing. Yeah.
deprivation. Yeah, very, very, yeah, lost of hearing and stuff like that. So it was interesting to hear about what accommodations need to be made and how he tries to tackle playing a game which is done in loud gymnasium halls generally, and how he
Yeah.
accommodates the things. Yeah, so it's very hard, very, very hard. So
If
yeah,
if events have the capability to have separate spaces, they should make use of those separate spaces,
for sure,
and
for sure.
they should promote those, and people should be able to request them. So that gentleman, 100% should, and not every space has that, and that's understandable, and I don't
Yeah,
expect that. But for an event that's holding over, I'll say an event that's holding over 100 people, deal with it. Like, no, like,
yeah.
find spaces.
Yeah, you can make ways, hopefully, some way to deal with it all. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, this has been a great chat, Rickard. So, before we wrap things up, so any final plugs or shout outs you would like to make?
Well, so, something we haven't talked about is the social element of being autistic, and that
Sure.
is, and so I said that I'm going to forget most of this conversation, but unfortunately, I'm not going to forget that I had the conversation. And I'm going to be spending the next 2 days minimum stressing nonstop about this conversation and if I said the right things. Either
You did
the
fine, buddy.
right
You did
things, air
fine.
quote, or actually the right things. Like, I'm legitimately concerned I have said things, and then because now I'm a part of a community, I'm worried that like I'm going to say something that misrepresents that. Like the whole conversation about inclusivity and stuff like that. Like there's part of me like I'm just realizing now I should. Oh, this is the opinions of me and does not necessarily reflect those of Red Dragon card comics and games. So it's it's so
Get the legal writer in there quickly, quick.
yeah,
You're
yeah, no,
fine.
I know, no, but like
Yeah, of
that's
course,
that's the life. And
for
then
sure.
when you factor in, it takes me longer to process things. Like I'm not again, I'm slow. I'm not stupid, but like it takes me time. So it's going to take me like days sometimes to process this entire conversation and be like, oh man, does Sam hate me? Does the listeners hate me? On my own pod, I'm like, oh, all 7 people listening are gonna stop listening now. Like, I'm just like, yeah, no, it's just
Go
it's a
with
whole
me.
thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and I guess the other thing I just want to say is it costs nothing not to be an asshole.
yeah.
It's absolutely free.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
no, like things like and it adjusts for inflation naturally because it costs nothing. Uh, I'm not proud of who I used to be, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there, and a big thing has been just treating people with respect, treating them as humans, and I don't give a shit what people are doing if they're not hurting no one. Like, just
It's all good, buddy. It's all
Sam,
good.
I'm exhausted. Like this is like I'm like
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good, brother. So, yeah, so
Measles!
yeah, yeah, it's alright. So,
Motherfuckers. Anyway, sorry.
All good, man. So, some accessibility required. I know. So, obviously, link in the description below for your podcast, so people who want to have a listen and understand
Thank
more.
you.
So, there you go. That's. I was trying to lead a horse to water. I can't force you to drink it. But...
no, it's all right.
No.
So it's some accessibility required once a month podcast about neurodivergence, mental health, and assorted other disabilities. The goal is to make tabletop gaming a more inclusive space where we can all learn about ourselves. That's a rough paraphrase of the tagline. The other place I want to shout out is Red Dragon Cards and Games. My man Dan Morris, he's the owner, very good friend of mine, capital letters, great dude, exemplar of the hobby. He does shipping.
Definitely does shipping.
He does shipping, so he'll ship stuff to you if you are not Canadian. And then the last thing, of course, we met on this server. I have to plug my brother's website, so Stat Check. It's Warhammer stats, meta-analysis, so good people, all of them.
Very good people. So no, very. I'm definitely more than happy to be part of that community, the social community, and I've had nothing but great things to deal with Dan Morris. So I met him a little while ago, funnily enough, like on a TTS server a long time ago. He and our teams played like a long time ago, and then I've seen him go from strength to strength to strength. And I just listened to Logan Salmon did his like breakdown talking to Dan Morris, and I love to chat to him more about the economics of obviously now he's sponsoring Scary to sort of try and become number one in ITC, and I'm curious to hear more about the economics of how he sees the business and competitive side of things. So we'll love to chat to him about it eventually. We'll get there one day. Add this to the memory box.
A couple more things. First of all, Sam, thanks for having me on. Number one, the bullet. Thank you. The other thing is, I do apologize to anybody listening if I said anything bad. Please, I didn't mean it. I don't want to. Even after my games, I'm like, was this okay? Was this enjoyable? And like, I'm almost giving like a customer service survey, and people are like, dude, calm down. It was good. All right.
It's okay.
The other do you do theme music and stuff? Like, do you have a tagline that you say at the end of an episode?
I do not have an outgoing tagline. There is theme music that goes in and out. Oh, there is theme music that goes into the episode. But other
look
than
at
that,
you put it in natural work.
I don't know about actual work. I mean, bloody hell, this is done by Riverside, and like, it's not the most elaborate and glamorous of things, but we're getting there. Okay, we're getting there.
It sounds exhausting. I just do cold opens, and I'm trying to find a good outro tagline, and then cold opens. Man, I'm telling you, I just dump it in Audacity, hit 3 buttons, boom, we're published. We're good.
That does work, and I wish it was I would love to make it as simple. We'll get there though. So we'll watch this space. We'll get there. So no, thank you, Rickard. This has been a fantastic chat, and thank you for the very kind words. So before I wrap things up, I just wanted to give some final plugs and shouts to our sponsors from Down the 40K.
You have sponsors.
Right.
Okay, let's hear them.
So, patreon.com/down the 40K. So obviously, the Down the 40K network helps establish events in the New South Wales community, does some various prize support and things like that. Even though the league is no longer more, like, there's still great deals to be had, and you can get early access to various events and get discounts for said events, which is fantastic. Next is Tip Top Terrain. So Tip Top Terrain is the official sponsor of Down the 40K in terms of terrain. Daniel Giri does a great job in making a variety of game aids and WTC sets, GW sets, and various bits and bobs of terrain. Anything on MDF, he will cut and make it. He is a absolute fiend in the laser cutter. So absolute gentleman, that fella.
Laser cutted?
He does a bunch of shit tons of laser cutting. So along with the 3D printing and laser cutting, we'll have a chat later, Rickard, about 3D printing. Rickard,
yeah, no, we didn't. We didn't get to talk about my my focused interest, which is resin and filament. Next time. Part 2.
And then there was thirdly, we got Emperor. So Emperor is the official prize sponsor for both the Sydney and Beresfield RTTs and various Down 40K events. So if you can't find what you need from the local gaming store, go to emperor.cc and get up to 20% off GW and various hobby goodies. So, and use code DU40K in checkout. Then last but not least, D6 Designs AU. They make a phenomenal dice, and they're definitely the dice I use to date. So use code DU40K for 10% off. Shout out to Andrew Trowbridge for all that jazz. So, and that's it. So thank you very much, Rickard.
This is so cool. You're doing so much cool shit in the future.
We try.
No, this is like, dude, like this is pretty cool. No, it's neat. This is really cool. I just really like this. Like you're doing like you're doing all these plugs and stuff like that, but like you're doing so much.
Me. That's not just me. It's not me. I'm not running the.
No, I know it's not just you, but like this is so cool. Like you're building the community, and like it's neat for me being in the past, so to speak, because I don't know why I find that so amusing, but like to see you like in a different continent, other side of the world, like dude, like this is great. You're doing great work, man.
Too kind. I just do my part, try and help where I can. So thank you very much, Rickard, and you're doing your part to help Rickard in more ways than one.
I'm trying.
So thank you very much, Rickard, for your time today, and thank you for everyone for listening. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye-bye. Bye.